Really, when it comes to hot X-Men villains, kind of all of them are hot, except for you, Mojo. Ugh. Miss Sinister is a Sinister clone who was implanted into the body of Claudine Renko via a genetic virus. This virus was Mr. Sinister's failsafe should anything happen to him, which of course it did. He ended up being killed during the events of Messiah Complex. Following his death, however, this failsafe was activated, transforming Claudine Renko into a perfect genetic copy of Mr. Sinister, but female. She also possessed Nathaniel's powers and his twisted personality. Claudine no longer existed, and in her place was Miss Sinister. Miss Sinister wouldn't last forever, and eventually Mr. Sinister would return to the comics, taking her place. Although I do think the idea of female clones of Sinister also existing is just a pretty cool idea, and I still kinda hope we could someday see a version of Miss Sinister brought back in the comics. I'm cool with there being a lot of clones of just Mr. Sinister, but what about some Miss Sinister clones too? That could be cool. All of the Sinisters. Sinister dinosaurs as well. Number 9. Donald Pierce. It's kind of weird really that I think Donald Pierce is attractive, but here we are. Now you know that I'm into the weird Victorian aesthetic of the Hellfire Club. Surprise, surprise. I feel like people that do know me would be not surprised by that at all. And of course I'm generally into that aesthetic, except for when it's being worn by Sebastian Shaw, of course. Sebastian is a brute, and I will never forgive him for what he did to Captain Kate and Lockheed. Ugh. Donald Pierce is extremely anti-mutant, but then again, he's also an X-Men villain, and around pretty much half of that group of the X-Men villains are pretty focused on, death to all mutants and that kind of stance. Donald Pierce himself was one of the original members we're introduced to of the Hellfire Club Inner Circle, holding the title initially of White Bishop. He's also part cyborg, which I'm also weirdly fine with. Even robots and, part robots deserve love. Love for cyborgs. This message from Amanda McKnight. Everyone love a robot today. Alright friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more hot villains lists, which as I said, I can do that. There's lots of hot X-Men villains, and I know y'all are going to be in the comments like, what about this person? So let's do a part 2 and let me know you want that by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister might seem like a weird one to include on this list, but have you seen him lately in the comics? He's a complete A-grade hottie. Something about Mr. Sinister with facial hair, just like rocking a beard, just really does it for me. Also, I love capes, and they're not super easy to pull off, so if you can pull off a cape, I think you deserve a spot on this list, which Mr. Sinister consistently does, so here he is. He's also just a really fun and creative villain, for better or sometimes for worse when it comes to plots. And if there is anything that screams hotness for me, it's creativity. I love creativity. Sure, he might be a mad geneticist, but he's a fun mad geneticist, you know what I mean? Number 7. Lady Mastermind. Mastermind himself is maybe one of the least attractive villains to me. Maybe it's the way that he operates, manipulating people's minds, or maybe it's just his really whiny nature in the original X-Men comics, or the fact that then he really couldn't take no for an answer, constantly attempting to win Scarlet Witch over to no avail. However, his daughter on the other hand, Reagan Wingard, aka Lady Mastermind, is a certified hottie. 1, she's just overall more physically attractive, to me anyways, but 2, she is also less whiny than her dad in general, which I also like. This might possibly be because she is more powerful than him and she doesn't really feel the need to prove how capable she is, so she doesn't get whiny. Of course, it could also be because Mastermind himself has paved the way for his daughter, meaning that her name and her abilities already mean something because of all of her dad has accomplished over time, improving her reputation as a capable villain. So doesn't need to be as whiny. Number 6. Callisto. With or without her tentacles, I'm just a big fan of Callisto. Callisto was at one point leader of the Morlocks and a villain to the X-Men. She kidnapped Angel and tried to make him marry her, not a great look. Fortunately, I think for both of them, that didn't work out, so yay. Honestly, that would be a weird pairing if it had happened and then still existed now. What would that be like in the future? Callisto for a long time has been a recurring enemy of Storm's. However, currently she's turned from being a villain to just being a straight up badass in the comics. She was depowered during M-Day, but still being a mutant took refuge on Krakoa. She now works alongside the Hellfire Trading Company, acting as Emma Frost's, the White Queen's, White Knight. She also recently got her powers restored after fighting and dying in the Crucible ceremony, asking Storm to fill in for Apocalypse as her own personal challenger. Storm and Callisto are pretty much cool now, so Storm actually did this for Callisto as a kindness, if that makes sense. If you're not reading the comics, it maybe doesn't make sense. Kill them not with kindness, but for kindness in this instance. That's what the Crucible's all about. If you want to know more about the Crucible, there's a whole X-Men issue on it from the last series of X-Men that started in 2019. Number 5. Solemn. Solemn is one of the new hotties on the X-Men villain block. That would be fun to imagine, just all these hot X-Men supervillains as neighbors. Sounds like a chaotic good time. Solemn is a mutant of Arakko who, instead of having adamantium bones, possesses adamantium skin. He was one of the sword bearers of Arakko during the Ten of Swords tournament. In fact, he was the one mutant we thought would face off against Wolverine, but in an unexpected turn, Solemn didn't even really fight at all. He was initially set to fight against one of his own because this was Saturnine's tournament and it was gloriously weird. Instead though, Solemn used a favor owed to him by Wolverine from when they both had to venture to hell to get their Muramasa blades to use in said tournament, making Wolverine tap in and fight on his behalf. Solemn is presented as being a smooth talker, master manipulator, and overall tricksy kind of person. Maybe that's why I like him so much? Number 4. Silver Samurai. Is there anything hotter than a well-trained swordsman and disciplined samurai? Silver Samurai has been a long-time enemy and sometimes frenemy of Logan, and is an iconic X-Men villain because of that. Whenever I think of Silver Samurai, or when I have seen him pop up on Krakoa lately, I always go back now in my mind to issue 3 of Wolverine's 1988 series. In that issue, we get to see him do some training in nothing but his undies and a mask. Oh, and he's wearing wrist bracers too. Gotta protect your wrists. The other thing I really find attractive about Silver Samurai is that despite being a villain, he still keeps to his own moral code, which is why he sometimes will even end up teaming up with his enemies or his rivals. If something is going on that he too does not agree with, he's willing to team up with even his enemies to put a stop to it. He's not too stubborn. And I like that. Number 3. Madeline Pryor. I mean, y'all know how I feel about Maddie. Madeline Pryor is probably one of my favorite X-Men villains around, especially because you can't help but feel for her if you know her backstory. Often referred to as the Goblin Queen, a lot of what makes Maddie so hot is just her dominant energy. She is a woman who gets what she wants no matter the cost, which has obviously driven her to do some pretty terrible things. The really tragic thing about Maddie though is that at the end of the day, she really just wants to be seen and loved and accepted, and it's like everything she does to try and get what she wants almost pushes her further away from happiness. She is the very epitome of the quote, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." She's deadly, dangerous, usually very unhinged, often filled with rage, but also very tragic. What is there not to love here? She's just so complex. I love characters that are complex. If you're a complex character in a comic, you're probably hot to me. Number 2. Selene. There is something so timeless about Selene, the way she is often drawn, and even her mannerisms and the way I imagine her voice to sound in the comics. This is probably because, well, she is actually ancient. Something I find very attractive about her is just that, her timelessness, her wisdom. But of course there is also the knowledge that she could drain the life force right out of you, just like that. Selene is an energy vampire who feeds on the life force of others. Her powers pretty much make her instantly a great and deadly villain. An immortal mutant, Selene is also a member of the group known as the Externals, not to be confused with the Eternals. That's a different group. The Externals are an immortal group of mutants who are generally all ancient and are often known for being unstoppable, or at least notoriously hard to kill. Number 1. Mystique. Is anyone surprised that Mystique took our top spot? I know I'm not. For me, it's not even Mystique's outward appearance, whatever she chooses it to be, her standard blue or another version. Mystique is attractive because of her drive. She goes for what she wants and she never gives up. She doesn't usually apologize, and although she's a villain, there are many times she has done things not with malicious intent, but because she thought it was the right thing to do in the end. I love Mystique for so many reasons, but I think the fact that she is a survivor is what I admire the most about her. She often does her own thing for her own reasons, and often to ensure her own survival. There is something so powerful and just so cool about that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's also good to think of others and be compassionate. I'm not saying we should all be like Mystique all the time. That would be a lot, but I think there is something admirable in her ability to completely accept herself, unapologetically, and trust in her own ambitions and her own plans. For me, that's what attracts me to a lot of female villains. It's like this rebellion against all the constraints of what it means to be good. It's the anti of what I feel like is expected of me as a woman and just a human in general. And it's fun sometimes to like be the opposite of that, you know? Be good, but then also be bad and be free. Number 10. Boss Madam Hydra. I mostly wanted to include this alternate version of Madam Hydra because of her cool look in the comics, though there is something problematic about this version of her, but we'll touch on that later. This version of Madam Hydra is married to MODOK, doesn't like wearing underwear, has a fork-like snake tongue, and wears a dress instead of her standard combat suit. She may have a hotter look, which is why I included her, but she is also kind of problematic. Granted, she is also a villain. As Madam Hydra, she sexually abuses her employees, including the main character from the comic that she appears in, Hank Johnson. Of course, this makes her a pretty terrible person, but she is Madam Hydra, and she is supposed to be a villain in the story even to Hank, who works for Hydra as an agent. So they obviously had to make her story-wise pretty terrible. Anyways, I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that it is her look that got her on the list rather than her treatment of her staff. Number 9. DC Legends Killer Frost. This version of Killer Frost comes to us from the video game DC Legends. She follows a similar origins to her main continuity counterpart, but has a different look. She still wears all black, but instead wears a corseted top and shorts, or a sleeveless romper, if they're connected. She has fur on her arm gauntlets and her boots have a dramatic heel, and she wears garters armed with ice shards. Her earrings also appear to be made of ice. Her legendary form in the game is more of a nod to her comic book appearance, but even this version is fire. Or ice, I guess. This version of Caitlin Snow wears a full-length bodysuit covered in ice spikes with cutouts for her fingers, shoulders, and a small chest cutout. Here her hair appears shorter and is styled upward, causing it to also resemble an ice spike. Number 8. Moonstone. This version of Karla Sofin comes to us from the Earth 7642, the Crossovers. This version of Moonstone was originally a criminal-turned-government-approved leader of the Thunderbolts. She still has her rivalry with Ms. Marvel, but she also has a cool, futuristic-looking costume. Kinda looks like liquid metal, and has a chest cutout that also shows off her cleavage and just the top of Moonstone's abdomen. Abs. Also, shiny things are so sexy. I love some shiny things. Guess I'm like Kaylee and Firefly. Number 7. Healing Witch Poison Ivy. In the comic Batman/Demon A Tragedy, Poison Ivy appears as a healer who aims to heal Bruce of his allergy to moonlight. She senses a dark presence within him and gives him an herbal treatment to help weaken the evil entity residing within him. This version of Ivy is like a mix of a naturopath meets a witch, appearing with voluminous and disheveled fiery locks covered in grass and flowers, wearing a small leafy bustier and a grass skirt. I also just love her nails. They're painted red and super pointy. She has big green eyes, a dramatic pouty lip, and a tiny little button nose. Sadly, this alternate version of Ivy is killed by Etrigan, who ends up being revealed as the Bat Demon who has been possessing Bruce. Number 6. Assassin Were Catwoman. This version of Catwoman comes to us from a medieval sort of fantasy world. In fact, the same world as the previous Poison Ivy I was just talking about. She is an assassin paid in gold by this world's Killer Croc to take out their reality's Batman. This version of Catwoman wears more armor on her arms than her body, and prefers to run around the city of Gotham with her mane of dark hair loose and flowing, and a very torn up version of her full body latex catsuit. Her armor gauntlets have claws and spikes attached, matching her buckled and spike covered pointed boots. Her mask also sports realistic and dramatic cat-like ears. In fact, this version of Catwoman also appears to be part werecat possibly, as she can also be seen with her head drawn back, face up as she howls at the moon above. Number 5. Hela, Goddess of Death. I know we normally call Hela the Goddess of Death. That is one of her titles in the main continuity of Earth 616, but this alternate of her from Earth 94001 is also known as the Goddess of Death. She comes to us from a reality where Loki ends up as the ruler of Asgard, but that's not the only difference in this reality. Hela also sports a different look. As opposed to her full-length bodysuit, she wears a sleeveless bodysuit more akin to a play suit or like a swimming suit. She also wears a mask that covers her hair and has a dramatic high-necked cape with thorns emerging from the back of it. Also, thigh-high boots, my fave. This version of Hela is also quite curvy and intimidating looking in comparison to Loki. She just looks like a big, powerful, and strong goddess here, and I am loving it. Actually, I love a lot of the ways the women are drawn in this comic. Number 4. Harleen. This version of Harley comes to us from the DC Black Label book Harleen, with stunning artwork by Stephen Sedgwick. It's easy to see what makes this version of Harley so attractive. The art is a huge part of her appeal here, but this is also a steamy exploration of Harley's origin story, how she went from studying the Joker to falling for him as she herself was lost to madness. It's like a weird, sexy story about a psychotic break, which is just all very Harley, to be honest. DC Black Label is also meant to be a more mature label for DC, which allows it to push the envelope when it comes to its series subject matter. Number 3, 2015 Secret Wars Selene. In the reality of the 2015 Secret Wars, Earth 19947, Selene is allied once more with Sebastian Shaw, and is also part of God Emperor Doom's court. She only appears briefly in issue 2 of Secret Wars, but I love her look here. Also, the artwork, which is Asad Rabish, the same artist as the one for the Loki series where the alternate Hela I mentioned appears. It is very classic Selene, her appearance here. Her wardrobe here is very classic Selene, much like Madeline Pryor's is also, and a look we haven't really seen Selene return to recently. This look is her in a corseted top with a black headband and cape. Black Queen, so of course all black everything. One can assume she also might be wearing thigh-high black lace-up boots, and she also wears long black gloves and a black thong. Selene is the epitome of power and sexiness. I also just love her in a cape. I love everyone in a cape. Cape and thigh-high boots for everybody. Number 2, Pamela Isley. This version of Pamela comes to us from DC Bombshells. I know we have already talked about an alternate version of this villain, but this one is also so stunning, and I'm such a huge Poison Ivy fan, who isn't, that I had to also include her. Poison Ivy in the DC Bombshells universe was a smuggler working with the alternate version of Catwoman. Eventually, the Nazis took over her home city of Calais in France. Unhappy about then being forced to work for the Nazis instead, she ended up brewing and wearing a potent perfume whose scent was so strong that it made the Nazis pass out, allowing her to kill them and get revenge and escape. However, the perfume also turned her skin green, just how she got her classic iconic look in this alternate world. Number 1, DCEU Harley Quinn. Now, I couldn't do a list about hot female supervillains without talking about the brilliant and stunning talent that is Margot Robbie. Robbie portrays Harley Quinn in the DCEU films, and despite Suicide Squad not being as big of a success as the studio had hoped, her performance of Harley still managed to wow audiences. Margot Robbie just seems to really enjoy playing the character, and also seems to have a brilliant understanding of just what craziness makes Harley tick. Whether she's rocking her daddy's little monster shirt and sequin shorts in Suicide Squad, or kicking butt in various jaw-dropping, bright and bold outfits in Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, she is magic to watch on the screen. Nothing like someone as badass as Margot Robbie playing someone as badass as Harley Quinn. Number 10, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch isn't being ranked low for hotness, just FYI, as you all know how much I love Wanda just all around, so I would never do that to her, but I did think to rank her lower because I just feel bad that we're always calling her a villain on this channel, especially because, you know, she is a hero, but especially an Avengers villain, as Wanda is also known for being a key member of that team herself. Still, there have been a few times when Wanda has seemingly been at odds against her teammates. There are the times she has struggled to regain or maintain control over herself when Chthon has threatened to possess her, and there's House of M as well as Axis, and in the MCU, the time she mistakenly fought against the Avengers in the beginning of Age of Ultron, and when she caused mayhem without really meaning to in WandaVision, when her grief turned her into a powerful yet misguided villain. Basically, she's been a villain a lot, but I don't want to call her a villain, and I already know that she's hot, so number 10 for Wanda today. Number 9, Maximus the Mad. Maximus might not always be an Avengers villain, but he has definitely worked against them and his brother on more than one occasion. What makes Maximus so attractive? Well, he's definitely one of those tall, dark, and mad types, which honestly, I gotta say, I'm into it. After all, conventional thinking is just so boring and it's so safe, and Maximus is definitely neither of those things. He's not boring and he is not safe. Maximus is also quite intelligent, and while he is often crazy, he has also claimed insanity before as a means of escaping punishment. So he might not be quite as crazy as you think all the time. Not only has he threatened his brother's reign as king of the Inhumans, having usurped him multiple times in the past temporarily, but he also has threatened the Earth in the past, cast, the entire Earth, which also obviously brought him into direct conflict with the Avengers. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving this channel, be sure to hit that thumbs up, be sure to smash that subscribe, you know, do all the cool things that us YouTubers ask you to do. And thank you. Thank you for doing them. It really does help us. So thank you. Number 8. Viper, or rather Madam Hydra as she was once known. Ophelia Sarkinson has not only been a longtime enemy of Captain America in the comics, but is also known for, at times, coming into conflict with the Avengers. In fact, she even attempted to place a spy in their midst, although this only resulted in her spy, who appeared to be Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, but was actually the Skrull Queen at the time, being recruited to also play double agent for the Avengers and Captain America against both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. Didn't quite work out. Ophelia is known for being sneaky, deadly, and manipulative, but she also looks damn good while doing all three. Number 7. Grandmaster. The Grandmaster in the comics is known as one of the Elders of the Universe. He actually made his first appearance in Avengers issue number 69 back in the day. He quickly became known as an Avengers villain when he challenged Kang to a game where they would each pit their own team of champions against one another. Kang chose the Avengers as his champions in the fight, and Grandmaster made his own team himself, dubbing them the Squadron Sinister. You might actually recognize that team, as an alternate version of them also appeared in the comics recently during the Heroes Reborn event, where they were known as the Squadron Supreme. Although Grandmaster isn't particularly sexy in the comics, his MCU counterpart is quite attractive, as he's portrayed by one of the most handsome and charismatic men alive, Jeff Goldblum. And if anyone wants to fight me about that, I'll see you in the comments. Number 6. Dark Avengers. I mean, not all of the Dark Avengers are sexy, but I think overall they're a pretty hot team, especially considering they're made up of some really bad and really deadly people. Among the ranks of the hottest Dark Avengers are Moonstone as Miss Marvel, Bullseye as Hawkeye, Daken as Wolverine, Sentry, Ares, and Yelena Belova, who was affiliated with the team for a time, although it was kinda later revealed that Yelena likely wasn't actually Yelena for most or for all of that time. The Dark Avengers is also an attractive group in the sense that they are still playing the role of heroes. Now, they might not always play the role well, but there is something sexy about seeing someone you know as bad playing the part of someone who is heroic. I guess it's just fun to see villains become heroes, or at least, you know, pretend to be heroes. I like when bad people are good, even if they're not really good. You know? Is that a thing? I don't know. Number 5. Queen Veronki. Or Veronke? I never know if I'm saying her name right, so I'm just gonna apologize to the queen if I'm saying it wrong. I think Skrulls are some of the hottest enemies of the Avengers out there, namely because they could shapeshift into whatever hotness they wanted, or that their opponent desired if they so chose. Shapeshifters are always the hottest because all options of beauty are basically possible to them. And beauty, after all, is very much subjective when it comes to what we define it as. It really depends on, you know, your personal preferences. Queen Veronki spent much of her time disguised as Spider-Woman while infiltrating Earth, which I also think is a pretty hot form overall. Although not so hot in the sense that this reveal kind of wreaked havoc with Jessica Drew's character development throughout the recent years. Definitely a hot form, but not a hot thing to do. How dare you do that to Spider-Woman? Oh, Queen Veronki. Number 4. Loki. Real talk, I almost forgot to mention Loki on this list, but fortunately I caught myself before I straight up just left him off. I would have been so disappointed in myself if that had happened. Loki is an amazing villain who is also known for being a sometimes shapeshifter and an all-the-time trickster. Loki has taken on many forms before, and even for a time was known as Lady Loki when he stole the body of Thor's love, Lady Sif. He also posed as Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, attempting to bend the Avengers to his will and create and lead his own team. All in all, Loki is a villain who cannot be trusted. But the fact that almost everything is a game or illusion to them is something that makes Loki so endearing. Even though he's often a liar, you kinda wanna believe him. Loki was so charming, he even fell for a version of himself when he crossed paths with the Loki variant Sylvie in the Loki Disney Plus streaming show. You know also that you're hot if you're falling in love with yourself. Number 3. Ultron. I know this might seem like a weird pick to some, but remember when Ultron was a hot lady? This was during the Ultron Initiative, back when Frank Cho was drawing Ultron and basically decided he wanted to draw a really hot and naked Janet Van Dyne as his Ultron. And honestly, I gotta say, Ultron be looking pretty good here, I cannot deny. Although the reasoning for Ultron wanting to look this way was not quite as solid as the overall appearance of the character. Still, Ultron is kinda hot even when appearing as a masculine automaton. As I've said before in in previous lists, I personally think robots deserve love too, and Ultron is really no exception to that rule. Even though, yeah, he does kind of want to destroy all of humanity, but you know, what if we deserve it? And also, what if Ultron just didn't get enough hugs? Did you ever think of that? Maybe if we just gave him some hugs, he'd be good. I'm very optimistic about robots. I'm like, robots don't want to destroy the world. They just want hugs. That's it. Number 2, Enchantress. Enchantress exists to be hot, literally. She is meant to be the perfect woman in terms of her appearance, which allows her often to get what she wants from anyone who might be attracted to her. Now, often in the comics, this means Enchantress will leverage her looks and appearance into manipulating men into doing her bidding or helping her in some other way, by granting her favors or power. However, this doesn't always work in her favor, as just because Enchantress is beautiful and impossibly powerful when it comes to her magical skills, she's simply not the best at everything. Though I would say in most cases she is almost always at least second best, which definitely counts for something and is still pretty impressive. I don't know how I feel about Enchantress's attitude though. I feel like sometimes I'm like, your attitude is not very hot, but you yourself are pretty hot. Also, you're like real powerful, so that's pretty hot. Number 1, Kang. So not only is Kang a hottie in the comics, okay, so maybe he's not quite a hottie in the comics, but he's definitely 100% a hottie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he's played by Jonathan Majors. Not only did Majors do a great job of introducing us to this enigmatic time-traveling multiversal villain in the season 1 finale of Loki, but he will also be allowing us to fall in love with multiple different Kangs, I'm sure, as we continue to meet him again and again throughout the franchise. After all, the Kang we met wasn't even the most deadly version, and undoubtedly we are going to be in for a real sexy and fun treat when we run into him again, or another version of him, in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I just hope the King truly gets to become the next big bad in the MCU, as he so deserves that. Also, I just want more Jonathan Majors because he's just great, so yes, give me that, please. Number 10, Danger. I don't know if it's weird that I find Danger attractive, but as I said on part 1 of this list, cyborgs, robots, androids, and synthezoids all deserve love too, in my opinion. Danger as a sentient AI may be more than most, after how she was treated by Professor X, who basically ignored her sentience so that he could keep using her as a training room for his X-Men. Not cool, Charles, not cool. Sure, she rose up and attempted to destroy the X-Men in revenge, and was pretty successful at battling them, at least at first, but I also can't help but feel that she was kind of justified in her villainy, especially when it came to her attempts to do harm to the Professor, who also was exiled at the time basically because of all the things that he'd done that had come to light. Number 9, Spiral. Spiral is awesome and hot because, well, she's a badass. She was originally a stunt woman known as Ricochet Rita, who met Longshot and got swept up in a temporal paradox, which was basically what led her to becoming her future self, the same future self who would end up attacking her. Temporal paradox. Her story is also actually kinda sad, considering that her love for Longshot was what ended up getting her imprisoned, and then Longshot's mind was also wiped entirely of her. That's pretty sad. Harsh. Spiral ended up being heavily mentally and physically modified and turned into one of Mojo's loyal goons. Poor Rita. Spiral also just has a lot going on, and there is a lot about her that one could love. She's a very experienced and skilled fighter, she's jacked and has multiple arms, so she's really jacked, and she can cast spells via specific movements. However, she typically needs all of her arms to be free in order to be fully able to cast spells, as generally their motion and through dance is how she's able to do so. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more hot X-Men villains, so many, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. All the hot X-Men villains. Number 8, Azazel. Azazel is Nightcrawler's demon mutant daddy, who is considered hot enough by Mystique for her to sleep with, have the child of, and even potentially fall in love with. Romance. Yeah, that's right, in case you didn't know or you forgot, Mystique is also Nightcrawler's birth mom. Azazel claimed to be one of the oldest mutants in existence, and is also at times claimed to be Satan, or at least someone who is once in running to become Satan. He and his kind, mutant demons known as the Neophem, actually found themselves trapped in the Brimstone dimension, the dimension that Kurt Wagner travels through when teleporting with a BAMF. Azazel making babies like Kurt was actually all part of a long con plan to help him escape the Brimstone dimension, as he planned to use his children from Earth to build a sort of gateway out of there. Sort of Earth Kid bridge, I guess. It's kind of what he's trying to do, through sacrificing them. It really depends on what you're into, I suppose, but I know a lot of people find the devil and just demons in general pretty hot, both literally and also literally, I guess. Would we consider that even metaphorically? Not really. They're hot and they're hot. Number 7, Apocalypse. I mean, Apocalypse when it comes to X-Men villains is known for being one of the most unstoppable. And just for that reason, we should bow down and worship the hotness of or whoever we're supposed to say his new Krakoan name. I don't speak Krakoan, but I'm trying. I'm really trying, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a hottie because of how capable and ruthless he is. He is inevitable, he is often undefeatable, and he is all-powerful. Apocalypse also generally is always operating from the bigger picture perspective. He has big plans, and who doesn't like someone who has that level of ambition? We all would want to rule as the queen by his side, no? But it turns out that that seat is already taken, sadly. But that's okay, Genesis is also another hottie. Another villain hottie. Number 6, Kandra. Like many villains who have come before and after her, I think a big part of Kandra's appeal is power. Why are we attracted to power? Well, because I think along with power comes a certain kind or level of confidence. At least it appears people who have power are generally confident, whether or not they feel that way. Something about that confidence, power, and dominant energy makes us feel safe, even when we actually might be in peril, because these are villains who might be threatening us. And generally, if you wind up tangoing with Kandra, you'll likely end up in peril at some point. At least that is what happened with Gambit in his miniseries. He and Kandra used to kinda be an item, but that didn't mean much when she felt he had betrayed her, and when Gambit found out what Kandra was really up to and how she'd actually been pitting the Thieves Guild and Assassins Guild of New Orleans against each other for years, basically creating their feud. Number 5, Shinobi Shaw. Shinobi Shaw is the son of Sebastian Shaw. Well, Sebastian Shaw I don't think will ever make my cut for hottest X-Men villains. Sorry, Sebastian. Shinobi is a cutie that I think deserves a spot. Shinobi Shaw didn't really start out as a villain, but seemed to become obsessed with inheriting all his father's power. He believed at one point to have killed Sebastian, and took his seat at the Hellfire Club and all of his connections for himself. During this time, he attempted to recruit Angel and Psylocke as members of the Hellfire Club's inner circle, but he failed. Later on, it was revealed Sebastian Shaw lived, and he returned to kill Shinobi, who was then resurrected, died again taking his own life, and later was resurrected on Krakoa once more. And I think that's it. He isn't really a villain in the current continuity, but that doesn't mean that he can't end up as one again. Although I do like him just being a nice guy. That's also good too. I wish he could just be a nice guy and be a villain. Wait, I feel like you can do that. You can do both. Number 4, Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix is one of the baddest of the bad, but hey, I love her, you love her, and you know, we can't help it, because although she can destroy entire planets, she is still ultimately a hottie. And not only that, she represents someone who is identified as being inherently good turning bad, which for some reason makes her more attractive when it comes to her evilness. The Dark Phoenix was initially explained as being Jean Grey, who had bonded with the Phoenix Force, became the Phoenix, and then became corrupted and turned dark. In reality, it was a little more complicated than that. It wasn't really Jean, and it was like the Phoenix made a copy of her, kind of was her. But the major appeal here, let's just ignore all that confusing continuity, does have to do with the basic narrative. Somebody good turning bad. The idea of someone becoming so powerful that they give into that power and kind of become corrupted by it. It's kind of weirdly sexy. I guess because power is kind of sexy. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Number 3, Magneto. Magneto is obviously one of the hottest guys around in comics. The weirdest thing is, I'm not really sure what it is about him that makes him so attractive to so many of us. I mean, I guess Eric Lehnsherr, like so many comic book characters, is very built, so physically there's that. If that's of course what you're into, like I think so many people are. For me, I think the charm of Magneto is just in his seriousness. I would just want to see him smile because he is typically such a strict, serious, and imposing figure. And then I suppose there is also a sense of fairness, and even a kindness to him that I expect many find appealing. Also, he's got great hair. Number 2. Revenant Storm. Revenant Storm was not in fact the real Storm, which is why she ranks only second on this list. However, she is a version of Storm, albeit one that is evil and that exists on the astral plane. We first met Revenant Storm in 2013's Uncanny X-Force issue number 10. Here we also learn that these Revenants that we meet, who appear to be copies of mutant heroes, actually exist for every sapient being on planet Earth. Basically, it turns out that Revenants are like a form of Mumadrai, which are beings who represent the anti-self that must be defeated prior to a person's birth, according to the Shi'ar and their mythos. Why is Revenant Storm so hot? Well, because she's an evil version of freaking Aurora Monroe. Also, that outfit though. Basically, anytime Storm is evil, or anytime Storm isn't evil, I think Storm is hot. That's how it goes. Next time we will have Vampire Storm. Bloodstorm. Number 1. Emma Frost. Emma is admittedly more of a hero now, but for a while before she turned to the side of good and joined the X-Men, she was known as an ally and member of the Hellfire Club, and an X-Men villain. Remember when she swapped bodies with Storm? Yeah, not cool, Emma. And the feud of those two has kind of carried on in the comics even today. Although in Krakoa both women are of course trying to move forward, and even have worked together as members and allies of the Marauders. Emma Frost is sexy, I think, because of how confident she is. At least that's what's really made me come around to falling in love with her. She is smart, confident, and really doesn't worry too much about what others think of her. Also, all those Hellfire Gala outfits, like damn! Emma was the best dressed at the Hellfire Gala, and if you don't agree with me, we're gonna have to fight.
Number 10. The Baroness. She has the best of both worlds going on. Sexy leather-clad assassin and librarian glasses. No longer must you choose between these two so often contradicting looks. No, now you can revel in someone so confident in their abilities they will wear their glasses into the field of combat. Now that's hot, because confidence is sexy, and so is skin-tight leather, until you have to take it off. Then it's difficult and gross. Number 9. The Enchantress. The Marvel one, not the Suicide Squad one. The Enchantress is a Thor villain named Amora, wearing the signature green of Marvel villains. Seriously, look into it. Green is very evil in that universe for the most part. She is a powerful sorceress, and fans have just been clamoring, waiting to see her on screen. We need some good magical villainy. Aside from Loki, I mean. She's a seductress who can also weave a spell. The Enchantress can hold her own and keep herself safe, as well as stand on equal footing with trickster god Loki. She's not to be trusted, but if you can worm your way into her good graces, you'll see some truly magical things. Number 8. Killer Frost. Now, Killer Frost has always been an ice queen, but she's getting a huge boost in popularity thanks to the Flash TV show. There's something about trying to thaw through that cold exterior to get to the cold burn underneath. She's dangerous, cold to the touch, but with hidden depths. Also ice powers, which are incredibly useful in combat and theft scenarios. That blue on blue Ice Queen color scheme, it's chilly in all the right ways. Alright, so as always, it's proving impossible to do these lists without sounding like a pervert. So let's move on. Number 7. Sinestro. Let's get some alien representation on this list, and also some mustache representation. Do you like people so tightly wound they use their authority to subjugate their entire planet? Well then, Sinestro is the man for you. If you're prepared to dominate and rule by fear, then get ready to go on a full intergalactic adventure, full of suppression and fighting, mostly Green Lanterns and mostly Hal Jordan. And also get ready to ignore that bizarre near-sexual tension writers have started placing between them. Number 6. Lex Luthor. So he's got power, strong moral convictions, and a sexy bald head. Look, bald men need love too. I watched Smallville and Lex was hella cute on that, and I'm still in love with Patrick Stewart. But back to Lex. He's a genius who could really improve the status of the world if he wasn't so obsessed with his hatred for Superman. He's a schemer who always knows how to come out on top. So if you're gonna be with him, you're gonna have to bring your A game, because he's not gonna save you. You're gonna have to be equals being with Lex. This would keep you on your toes. So if you like constantly being challenged and hoping not to be stabbed in the back, then Lex is the man for you. I mean, Lois dated him and she's still alive. Number 5. Catwoman. She is iconic, though not exactly up in the top tier of villainy. In fact, she sometimes falls into a gray area. However, she's always a thief, so she can fall into this category. While Poison Ivy is a femme fatale who will kill, Catwoman is one you have a chance with. Yes, she's dangerous and alluring, but also genuinely flirtatious and with a potential for kindness and compassion. She's been played by a slew of alluring actresses, which has added to her appeal for the public, and people are also really attracted to her will they won't they relationship with Batman. She's independent, and rumor has it she has 9 lives, and she is definitely a fan favorite when it comes to sex appeal.
Meow.
Number 4. Cheetah. This Wonder Woman villain has undergone many different redesigns over the years, but one thing has remained the same: cheetah print. Oh, all the cheetah print. Nowadays, she's a full-on Catwoman, bent on taking down the Amazon. She's had a myriad of costumes, or is also drawn in some Mystique styles of nudity, i.e. naked but not fully because fur or strategic lines. She's wild and feral, which will let many people let their imaginations run wild, dangerous and skilled, and extremely paired with Wonder Woman. So if you have a slight furry fetish, just enjoy cats, or want to look at some sapphic fan art, there are many reasons to check out Cheetah. Number 3. Magneto. So what's sexier than a man completely dedicated to his ideals? Why, a silver fox with a sexy accent, of course. Confession time. I've had a crush on Magneto since the 90s cartoon, and I feel no shame.
Fools! Do you think robots can resist the master of magnetism?
The interplay between Xavier and Magneto is interesting since both have valid points and are coming from stances one can identify with. There are actually some who think Magneto's actions are completely justified, so his stories are interesting to read and ponder. On top of that, how many men or anybody can pull off the color scheme of his costume? And for those who like real portrayals, you have Michael Fassbender and Sir Ian McKellen. I'm just saying, there's a lot of Magneto out there to go around. Number 2. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is considered by many to be iconic because of her sex appeal. It is an aspect of her character that has been present from her base design, even though there is definitely much more to her. Poison Ivy is the quintessential femme fatale. Look but don't touch. She's desirable but deadly. And for those who are easily titillated by matters of sexuality, also bisexual. Poison Ivy is considered so sexy, the showrunners and writers of Gotham decided to age up the character so they could sexualize her without it being creepy. But it still is. Be that as it may, many people are always excited to see Poison Ivy.
Nature always wins. Will he ever learn?
And number 1, the Joker. Now this might seem like an odd one, but if you hang out online at all, you know the Joker has fangirls out there even more dedicated to him than Harley Quinn. It's not always about appearance, although the Joker has had some pretty attractive incarnations, especially in the comics. For many, it's more about what the Joker represents: complete and total freedom, anarchy, obsession, and saying no to society and living by one's own rules, while of course also maintaining a flamboyant and fantastic fashion sense. The Harley Quinn element only added fuel to this fire, as it added an us against the world element that could be placed upon the character, which many found appealing. The Clown Prince of Crime may be reprehensible, but that doesn't mean that people find him undesirable.